The Digital Photography Cafe show is brought to you by Focus Pyramid, the autofocus lens calibration tool for your camera.
Welcome to the Digital Photography Cafe show. Join hosts Trevor Current and Joseph Cristina as they serve up the hottest photography news and commentary.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. This is episode 205. I'm Joseph Cristina here with my co-host Trevor Current. On last week's show, we talked about a company putting fashion catalog photographers and makeup artists out of business, Sony sensor and camera sales down for 2015, and the brand new Canon 1DX Mark II. If you haven't watched last week's show, I encourage you to do so. You can find it at digitalphotographycafe.com and our YouTube channel, youtube.com/dphotocafe. Listen with the popular Stitcher, TuneIn, and Xbox Music apps, or subscribe through iTunes or RSS.
Hey, we are back. How you doing, man?
How are you doing, my friend? You are back. You are here.
I am back. After a couple weeks of some crazy busy times here with work and stuff.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
It's always a thing, right? When it rains, it pours. You know?
Absolutely. Well, welcome back.
Yes, thank you.
Show 205.
That's right. Getting up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice. So anyways, we're going to probably try to push through a quick show if possible. We always say that, and then we end up in an hour, but we're not going to do it this time. We're going to do a 20-minute show.
That's right.
Right. We'll see if that happens, but we're going to give it a shot.
Works.
So anyways, let's start out, just get kind of straight away right into it. We got a lot of different topics that we got to go through pretty quick. So starting out with ON1. We do like ON1 software. We've played with them. You've used them way back before. They were even called ON1. And they have a new piece of our software. It's not new, but it's an updated piece of software, which is Resize 10, which is really, really a great package that we've both used, right?
Yeah. I used it back in the day when it was still Genuine Fractals.
Right.
Genuine Fractals was, I guess, acquired by ON1 and then renamed to Resize, a long time ago. And this really is a pretty cool piece of software. I probably used it, I'm saying 8 to 10 years ago in the Genuine Fractals stage. And I used to use it when creating store display images. So that was back in the days of the tail ends of the G5 Macs and the beginnings of the Mac Pros of what we were using in our office. So they were really good machines for the time, but they weren't anywhere near as powerful as what they are today. And we would need to do these 30-inch by 60-inch posters that were offset printed. So they needed to be that large at 300, 350 DPI. So that is a really big file. And to try and manipulate a file that large on those older computers was just impossible.
Yeah.
So what I was able to do is actually work in 1/4 scale. So I was able to work at 1/4 the size at 300 DPI, create all the layered files I needed to create the imagery, save it out, and then export it and run it through Genuine Fractals at 400%. And man, I tell you, that did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
When you went in with something high res and the output just looked great. It's always garbage in, garbage out.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you give it good input, your output looks really good. And I can only imagine how much better the technology is today than it was 8 or 10 years ago,
Oh, yeah. So for me, I do fine artwork, right? And I don't know if you guys can see, but behind me, I have one of my pieces. And I do a lot of 40 by 60 prints, large chemical prints. And sometimes we want to bring in that film, scan it in, do some editing or whatever before we go and print. And in so doing, printing at a 60 by 40 size, as you're talking about, it's not easy to work on these images. And to be able to blow them up after the fact is just glorious. The special sauce that they have going on with this program is unbelievable. It really works. So if you guys haven't, they're not a sponsor or anything, but we've both, Trevor and myself, have used it, and it just works out amazingly well. It's not even on this. There's no comparison to trying to do an enlargement on, let's say, Photoshop or something. It's just not there, period.
No, you can tweak the size in Photoshop a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's techniques for doing it that you can kind of get it to increase the size a bit and still look good. But but nowhere's near the same.
No, the algorithms that they got going on in that software are just second to none. So, guys, take a look at it. It's called Resize 10, brand new. It's the update. If you do any enlargements, this is definitely something for you to go take a look at. So anyways, moving on, Sony a6300, right? The 4K mirrorless camera. What do you think, my friend?
Yeah, you know, this is interesting. I mean, we've been talking a lot about mirrorless cameras lately, a lot about Sony mirrorless cameras lately. This one looks really good. It's 24.2 megapixel APS-C. It's not full frame. It's got improved low light performance up to ISO 51200.
Right.
I think what this camera is really, claiming to fame here or trying to do is this super 4D focus system that they have.
Right.
They're really pushing the technology here because, as Joe, even as you've said, doing your autofocusing test with the S2 and the Canon lenses that you did, I mean, you saw how poor quality that was, obviously.
Right.
This system, not to say that this is going to compensate for that, but they're really focusing on the focusing system.
Yeah, pardon the pun.
Yeah, pardon the pun.
Yeah, I mean, they need to do that, right? I mean, it's always been the case that mirrorless technology is not there when it comes to autofocus, period. That's just bottom line. That's the way it is. Matter of fact, Nikon and Sony just had an argument back and forth regarding autofocus and how it works or how it doesn't work with mirrorless. Mirrorless is sitting there like this camera, for example, 425 points of phase detection and 169 points of contrast detection, which is you would think just a ton. And what they're saying is that 4D thing, whereas it's understanding almost like thickness, almost levels, almost three-dimensionality to the autofocus, which is fantastic, especially for tracking. Like if you're doing 4K video, you need this thing to track. I mean, I'll tell you what, I just saw, I'll give you a perfect example here, a Canon, one of the M series, the mirrorless, shooting video and watching this thing track was just horrendous. It was abysmal. It couldn't track. It was all over the damn place. It was just horrible. And this is what ends up happening if you do not have an autofocusing system that works. If your images are out of focus, then it's kind of useless, right? You might as well just chuck it, especially when it comes to video and you want it to lock onto a specific target and keep on focusing. So yeah, they're saying this is like their thing because they understand that the importance of this. But there's a lot more.
They're saying, like even from the photo and the video side, with this new technology, this new system that they're putting in place, it activates more autofocus points around your subject, which will help with your tracking with a moving subject in video, of course.
Right.
Or if you're doing moving photography, you're doing sports, you're doing fashion where the model's moving or something. Mm-hmm. It gives you more opportunity to get the focus right. And they're claiming through tests that this is what they're saying, the world's fastest autofocusing system at 0.05 seconds to lock on.
Right.
So, I don't know. I guess I think the tests will show, right?
By the sound of the camera, I mean, it sounds really, really good. Video is supposedly in line also with, for example, the camera that I just reviewed, and that is the Sony, the Alpha 7, the S2. So, and matter of fact, if you guys didn't see that video, you should go take a look. I'm going to go and stick like something in the corner here where you can go click that and go watch. But just kind of a little behind the scenes, there will be an R2 coming to me in the next week or so. So watch out for another video based on that. So, but anyways, they're saying that this camera, the 6300, is very similar to video that's shot with that A7, which costs 3 times the price, $3,000 compared to $1,000, which is fabulous. Now, the thing that's really interesting to me is that it's shooting S-Log3 and S-Log2. And any of the video guys out there know you need that. If you're going to be shooting a movie, you want to do grading after the fact, you need S-Log to be really able to do it and do it efficiently, do it effectively, and be able to get some amazing imagery. So really cool. I mean, it sounds on paper amazing for $999. This is like a really
I mean,
nice
it's
skin.
doing 4K video, you know, high resolution video. I mean, they're saying that with the sensor development, the 20 plus megapixel sensor is actually using more of these megapixels efficiently, and all of this to get really great high quality 4K video, which for editing or whatever, I mean, again, a lot of us are not producing final output in 4K, but it really gives you the ability to do some nice stuff in editing as far as zooming and cropping and
panning,
like panning, exactly.
Having all those pixels is awesome. I mean, you can do a lot of stuff after the fact for sure. So
yeah,
but it looks good. Definitely take a look at it. Like I said, for $1,000, I mean, kind of like a no-brainer. NFC built in, Wi-Fi built in. Stuff that should be there, and it is. So we'll
$1,000 for the body and almost $1,200 for the one with the kit lens.
Yeah. So after I'm done renting this R2, the Sony Alpha A7 R2, maybe I'll bring one of these in and test it out for you guys. You can take a look and see what you think. Do some real world testing on it. So, anyways, moving on. 4K video. We need 4K video, right? Whenever we're doing any kind of productions, that's always been kind of like a point, a pressure point. Let's say we can find a lot of images on iStock, but to find 4K really good video is really difficult. Where Adobe now just announced, listen, guys, we have 100,000 native 4K videos for you guys in our asset library. What do you think about that?
That's pretty huge. Yeah. That's pretty huge. I mean, again, 4K has been around for a little while, but not that long to have a massive stock library of stuff.
Exactly.
And when you're editing, we can find photos everywhere. If we need something, we can kind of go out and shoot it. But getting good video is hard to grab. And if you need just that right clip, sometimes it's just not economical to go shoot it yourself.
Right.
So being able to have a good selection of assets is really important. So I'm excited about this. I like this.
Yeah. So Super Bowl Sunday is here. So we got a pretty cool article about that. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors. The 3-in-1 Photo Reference Tool is a versatile, all-in-one color reference accessory designed to help you dial in white balance, exposure, and color temperature. With its 37 anti-reflective color reference tiles, both photographer and videographer can take complete control over their color workflow. The front side features 19 color tiles. The large 18% gray card with center target makes autofocus lockup easy while providing fast in-camera custom white balance and single-click color correction in post-production. The 6-step exposure gradient provides perfect tonal reproduction, balancing highlights with deep, rich blacks in every image. Its 12 tiles of primary, processed, and standard skin tone colors are perfect for digital reference. On the backside of the 3-in-1 Photo Reference Tool, you will find 18 custom tiles. 6-step exposure gradient including an 18% gray tile, perfect for dialing in exposure and neutralizing color temperature in post-production. And finally, perfect for the portrait photographer, a unique 12-step gradient unlike any other color reference tool, allowing warming, cooling, and neutralizing color with a single click. From in-camera to post-production, the 3-in-1 Photo Reference Tool helps push your creativity to the next level, providing complete color control over all your imaging creation. Grab one today from your local camera dealer or visit our website at jcristina.com.
All right, so we're back here in the United States. Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday. We're recording this on Friday, so by the time you hear this, it will be Monday after Super Bowl.
It'll be over.
It'll be over, and we will know who the winner is at that point. But one of the photographers covering the event, his name is Andrew Hancock. There was this article online about his gear that he's bringing to cover the Super Bowl. And oh my God, what a pack of gear, man.
Yeah. So guys, this is just, it's just amazing to kind of see what ends up going, now he's obviously a Nikon shooter. So, all of his gear is Nikon based stuff, for the most part, but he's bringing, the D4S, a couple of D4s, a D810, 750, and then just a host of lenses. What's really important here is every lens is 2.8 or less. And I talk about this all the time, how important that is to get that good glass. 2.8, f2.8 or less, 1.8 as well as 1.4, a bunch of converters, little teleconverters, and, you know, glass from really, you know, close stuff for doing like wide, like a 20 millimeter all the way up to 400 millimeter is going to be in his sack that he takes along with him. And he'll end up having a 600 millimeter f4, which is the slowest piece of glass, waiting for him. But then again, that's the size of like a small cannon, like a bazooka. It's not something you want to put on a plane. You know, it probably costs, you know, $20K or something. So you want to
better off shipping it to location.
Yeah, and you can tell he's all Mac. One thing that I do like, you know, I really like my G-RAID drives. I like G drives, period. I know you're in the other camp when it comes to backup, but I love the G-RAID. And one of the G-RAID drives, guys, that he's using is a new technology that is just unbelievable. And what it is a 1 terabyte G-RAID drive, but it's a SSD, for raw SSD drive. Now listen to this. Usually a 1 terabyte drive, guys, you know, for G-RAID is about $200, right? This is $900. You want one of those, Trev? What do you think?
SSD and the terabyte capacity there, that is a lot of flash memory, you know, that needs to be done in real fast flash memory. So yeah, that's big bucks, man. That's big bucks. It'd be nice to have, but you know what? You need it when you're doing location work like this and you've got one chance to get the shot and you've got, you know, I mean, there are no redos, and you don't want to be getting on a plane with a stack full of memory cards and, you know, have them get lost or stolen or, you know, crushed or whatever. I mean, you need your backups. And, you know, if he's there with an assistant running cards and they're dropping them into the computer and backing them up, I mean, that's the way to do it on the fly.
Yeah. And you know, what's interesting, too, is they use this, this Lexar Tower. And it's really cool. It has 4 or 5 little slots where you can stick in your SD cards into it, and it reads all simultaneously. It's just amazing, amazing, amazing. It's only like $60, guys. So if you do like weddings and something where you're having to move a lot of data quickly on multiple cards, that's just the way to go. Take a look at that. It's Lexar puts it out. Very, very cool. And like you're saying, yeah, you need to be able to back this stuff up and back it up fast. That's why he's going into that SSD. I mean, for me, I mean, bear in mind, guys, you know, when you see those pictures on the cover of the magazine, you're like, oh my God, how did they get that? It's crystal clear. It's perfect. Well, that was like 1 out of 100 shots, right? That was taken in that split second. These cameras, like I was talking about with you guys last week, the Canon, the new X, right? The 1DX Mark II, that thing is motoring at like 14 frames per second, and it will burst up to 170 frames straight out raw before it has to, you know, stop and take a deep breath, you know, with a CFast card. So you could just imagine that. That's what it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
So of course they're going to get the shot, but that's when it comes back to autofocus. If they can't pull that focus continuously, they've missed it. I don't care how many shots they're taking. If they're, you know, 100 shots in those 2 or 3 seconds that are coming, you know, coming out, and they're all blurry, it means nothing, right?
Right.
So
let me ask you something from a technical standpoint. You as a photographer, and you know, me as, you know, kind of more of the studio type of guy. But so all of his glass is 2.8 or lower. So it's all fast glass.
Right.
But, you know, so you're shooting sports. The idea is, you know, you want to capture the subject, you know, the football player in this case, making those diving catches. You want to get him razor sharp.
Right.
But he's moving. All right. So that's where your autofocus comes in. But if you're shooting at a 2.8 depth of field, your aperture,
how do you get that?
That's fairly shallow. Yeah. So what is to prevent that, so, you know, I mean, why would you shoot that low and sacrifice your depth of field?
Yeah. So, I mean, you take a 2.8 piece of glass, you almost never shoot it at 2.8 because it's going to be not quite as crisp, right? You'll probably, like, for example, if I was to shoot this, I would shoot, instead of at 2.8, I would shoot at probably 3.2 or 3.5. I wouldn't go to 4. Let's say 3.2, 3.5. And then what I would do is I would lock in my shutter speed, because I know I don't have a flash at this point. Okay, I'm going to be using ambient light. It's still bright. You're at the Super Bowl, but still, it's still ambient light. I'm going to take it probably right around maybe an 800th of a second, a 1,000th of a second, something like that, to be able to capture this stop motion. correct?
Right.
As fast as possible. And then what I would do is either shoot it manual if I know that I have even lighting across where I'm going to be shooting at that specific moment, or I'll shoot auto ISO. So we'll have, let's say, 1,000 of second of a shutter speed sitting at about 3.2 with an ISO that kind of meanders around however it needs to be able to get the shot, to compensate for that speed. Because you can't have any type of, we can't have it go and shoot aperture priority, let that thing drop down and end up sitting at, let's say, a 200th or a 100th of a second, 80th, and everything's blurry. That's just never going to happen because you don't have that flash. So that's generally what you want. You want extremely fast glass. You want to step it down a little bit, maybe, like I said, 2.8 to about 3.2, and then you want to compensate through your ISO. And a lot of these can't, like Nikon, it's going to be able, he can shoot it if he needed to 6400, right? And shoot at 1,000th of a second or even faster and still have just rock solid images.
Yeah.
So really good. That's really
and
kind
I
of the
suppose
trick.
when they're like, let's say if they're on the line, they're all in position, and you've got that depth
then
of the line, and you want to get that all sharp. Then obviously you change your aperture, your depth of field. You get the entire line at that point, but they're not moving, so you're not really worried about that, and you have a couple seconds that you can adjust the camera.
Exactly. And of course, from lens to lens, it's going to vary also, and the distance from your subject to the background. If the distance is a football field, well, everything's going to be blurry anyways if you shoot at 5.6 or even higher.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So that's going to you have to take that into consideration. Also, if he shoots the bazooka at 600 millimeter, you're going to have a completely different depth of field. Even though that's at 600 millimeter at f4, it still will be just amazing milky background. So anyways, that's kind of like the back end or the shtick on how that kind of goes down. Anyways, moving on. Sony, the G Master lineup of lenses. This goes back to mirrorless. We were saying, well, mirrorless is there, kind of there. Autofocus, maybe not, but it's getting there, and we want to move to mirrorless. Well, where is the glass? And we see, and I've talked about this in the past, we don't want meandering glass. I don't want something that shoots at 3.5, and then if you zoom in, you're at 5.6 or higher. We don't need that. We need 2.8. Well, that is now solved, right, with this new glass.
Yeah, this is really good. This G series Master series of glasses. They got the FE 24 to 70. It's a 2.8. They got the FE 85 millimeter 1.4 and the FE 70 to 200 2.8. So I mean, that really kind of covers your range there for the most part.
That's what I use, actually.
And that's what you need. You need this fast glass. And this goes back to what we just mentioned about shooting sports, or whatever it is. You want to be able to have that fast glass. I can imagine this is going to be really expensive glass. It is Sony glass. And if it's going to be real high quality, like they're saying, you're going to pay for it.
Yeah, so the 7200 is kind of TBA. We don't know really exactly. It's going to be coming out in May. I'm going to say the 7200 piece of glass is probably going to be about $2,500, guys, just looking at what a Canon piece of glass is. The 85 millimeter 1.4 is $1,800, and the 24 to 70 is about $2,200. And that's pretty much in line with Nikon and Canon glass. That's just what it's going to be. It's not cheap. So
no, it's high quality glass. You get what you pay for sure.
Exactly. So anyways, moving on. I know that there's people out there hurting when it comes to photography, right? And we talk about this all the time. Do you need to go and chase the latest gear? And we say, listen, your gear is only as good as for what you're doing. Whatever you're doing, that's the gear that you need. Nothing more, nothing less. And once you say you're a portrait photographer and you do only studio work, well, you're going to need a lot less gear than like this guy here sitting on on the sidelines with his bazooka. All right. So if you're a portrait photographer, you're working in a studio, you have a nice set of lights, and everything is copacetic. You have a great background, everything's perfect. You can get away with going and using a box camera out of Costco, right? But if you need to do, like, let's say, more intense stuff, it's going to cost you more. The thing of the matter here is, do you constantly buy gear? What can you do to prolong that next purchase and to keep your gear, let's say, relevant? And one of the primary things to do, number one, is to have that gear serviced on a regular basis. Probably service it once a year, number one, and keep it clean. So many people out there, and pros themselves, they've never even cleaned their sensor. It's like you need to keep the stuff clean. You need to keep stuff.
Yeah, it's maintenance. You know, it's just like with a car. You got to change the oil. You got to do the brakes. You've got to do all this stuff. I mean, if this is your work tool, this is what you need. You know, you need to maintain it. You need to make sure that it's in good working order so it lasts.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, it's one of those things. Some people they'll go and they'll lend their camera to people. Don't do that. You don't want to lend your junk to somebody. You know, no. You can't do that. Another thing that a lot of people do too is they get a camera that shoots video, but they don't really understand how video works and how it let's say degrades the sensor, how it really punishes a DSLR. Overheating is a critical issue when it comes to the DSLRs and the longevity of them. If you overheat these cameras over and over and over, they're not going to last long, guys. That's just it.
No, electronics do not like heat. You know, that's why computers have fans. You know, if you keep beating on these shooting video and overheating them, pushing them beyond their limits, you are definitely going to run into problems for sure. I mean, that's why, you know, if you're going to do a lot of video, then get a video camera.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you need a purpose-built machine at that point. I mean, I know, Joe, when you use the C100, I mean, that thing is badass. I mean, that was built for doing video.
Yeah, unbelievable.
It's got the intakes and the exhausts and the fans and everything else to keep it running properly.
Yeah. If I was to, you just couldn't cover a big event with anything other than that. You need something that's not going to overheat. You need something that's just really, you know, high quality that can, you know, work for a long period of time without any kind of issues. So yeah, it's one of those things you have to really look at. Your equipment is so important. If you have the money for insurance, I would say, you know, pick up some minor, you know, just base coverage insurance. So if there's loss, you know, there's some kind of, you know, something stolen, you know that you'll be able to, it can be recovered. Let's just say that's really, you know, it's really important. It's very important. The thing is you don't have a lot of money if you know, you're shooting stuff and you're kind of you know, making the money and spending it, But so many people do this. You know, they love photography. They start as a lover of photography and not a business owner of photography. And once you're a business owner, you have to rethink things.
It's a completely different mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, you know, I mean, you get a weekend warrior who has a good day job that has the money coming in, and you know, they like to spend what they make, let's say, shooting photography, on more gear. Yeah, you know, and that's great. Yeah. But when you finally decide to make that switch to full time, you can't do that anymore. Now, you know, whatever you make on your shooting needs to go to pay your bills. Yeah, and you know, I mean, so we're at the beginning of February now. It's tax season here in the U.S. You know, we need to really look at what 2015 cost us. Right. You know, what our earnings were, what our, you know, assets are, what our losses are.
Yeah, what the liabilities are.
What the liabilities are. And it's really time to reevaluate. You know, I mean, I look at, you know, the purchases that I've made throughout the year. I've made a lot less purchases this year than I did last year or the year before because I don't need the equipment now. I have what I need. Yeah. So I've been able to streamline that a little bit more. Yeah. The other thing,
the biggest thing that I see is those recurring bills, right? Yep. I mean, I see a lot of people that ruin cameras because instead of learning how to shoot, they're just spray and praying, and they go through shutters like they're going in a wedding. They'll shoot 3,000 photographs when they should only be shooting, let's say, 600. That happens all the time. But you know, this type of thing where people are you know, every month just bleeding, hemorrhaging money. And a perfect example is, let's say you're using like Adobe. We talk about this all the time with leasing software in comparison to buying. You know, some of us, we need to have Adobe and we need to pay them $59 a month to have the full suite. Well, some of us don't need that. You know, some of us don't need to pay at all a monthly subscription, and they can use other alternatives instead of going down the Adobe line. Now, if that might not be you, but there's a lot of things like that, Trevor, right? So many of these things. Look at those recurring bills that happen every month. Stuff that you don't even remember. You go back and you look like, oh my God, I didn't even believe that. It's the gym membership, you know, model. You're like, I think I've had that for a year, and I think I went twice. You know?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely a victim of that one too. I mean, I joined the gym over a year ago, and I've been paying every month. And
how many times did you go?
Who has the time, right? You know, so it just sits there, and that's what these gym owners want.
They
And
love that.
honestly, that's what all these subscription services want. They want your credit card. They want you to set it and forget it.
And forget.
And they just keep making that recurring money month after month after month after month. And that's the thing, just like Joe said, I mean, if you don't need Adobe Creative Suite, for example, if you can use alternatives, you can save yourself that monthly money. Maybe you have a one-time purchase of software, alternate software packages, but, moving forward, you don't have those monthly payments. And if it will do the job for you, then great. I mean, me personally, I need Adobe because of compatibility within the industry.
Right.
But you guys, can use an alternate to Lightroom. You can use an alternate to Photoshop. There's alternates pretty much to everything out there. And we've talked about that kind of at nauseam.
And good stuff too. Not like it used to be.
And good stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, we need to get out.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So if people want to connect with you outside of the show, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, go and find me on Twitter, and that's at Joseph Cristina, and that'd be Cristina without an H.
Great. And you can connect with me on Twitter. It's at Trevor Curran.
Sorry, everybody. We are out of here for yet another week. You can get all the show notes from this episode by visiting digitalphotographycafe.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/dphotocafe. And we'll see you next week.
You've been watching the Digital Photography Cafe show with Trevor Curran and Joseph Cristina. Subscribe to our YouTube channel with any compatible device by visiting youtube.com/dphotocafe. Be sure to subscribe to our audio feed through iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Xbox Music apps or through RSS. Visit digitalphotographycafe.com for show notes and to connect with your host.